All right, we got a small crowd in person here. I don't even know if we can call it a crowd, a little group. But we'll get going for this week. There's been quite a bit of industry updates that we'll get into a little bit that I think are important. But just like always, we'll start with a little bit of thoughts on Motivation Monday, right? And usually the last couple weeks, these come to me like an epiphany while I'm running. So I'm training for the Wasatch 100. It's a 100-mile trail race in September, and so I'm already running. My long runs are anywhere from 11 to 13 miles on Saturdays and Sundays right now, and so I get a lot of time to kind of get in my head and ponder. So these are the thoughts that come to me while I'm suffering. Oh, you would think this would work. There we go. One of these weeks, I'll have this down seamless. Okay, so I've been thinking a lot about grit. And grit's kind of a stupid word, and I think it's really like overused in the sales world. I wish there's a lot of different names for it, and a lot of things play into what grit is. But grit is basically, it's like the ability, we'll get into it a little bit later, but I was thinking about some of the people who have demonstrated a lot of grit. And Kobe Bryant also has this quote that I really like. It says, "The only thing I control is how hard I work." And that kind of embodies, this attitude of grit. So what is that, right? I asked Google or one of the AIs to define what grit is. And it says, grit is often described as the psychological trait of passion and perseverance for long-term goals. It's not just about working hard, but about staying committed over years, even when faced with setbacks. Okay? And then this is Mike says, grit is the ability to just not quit. And as I guess I'm very much middle-aged now, seen a lot of my friends, a lot of people that I've worked with, I've done sales with for the past 20 years. And one of the common traits, or one of the things that really sticks out for those who have achieved a lot or have had a lot of success, a lot of people have natural ability, they have natural talents, but the number one thing that all of these people have in common is grit. It's just the ability to not quit, to just keep going. And, this weekend I was watching NCAA tournament a little bit. There was a wrestling tournament as well, where there was a heavyweight wrestling champion with a huge upset. And it was just one of those like really impressive things. He was like a 15 to 20 to 1 underdog, and he ends up upsetting this national gold wrestling thing. And I just thought, man, what like absolute grit, right? He didn't have the talent, he didn't have the pedigree. He just had this irrational belief and just wouldn't quit, and ended up out-grinding, out-hustling, out-wrestling this guy. And, I feel like there's a dichotomy of society emerging right now, a split. And on one hand, and I'm trying not to get necessarily political or have any sort of undertones there, but there's like a whole society that is kind of promoting hard work, meritocracy, embodying grit, right? And then there's a whole other subset of messaging right now that I feel like has been really harmful, especially to like younger kids, like Gen Z and below. And for basically 10 years, they've had this message to them that's like, hey, you don't want to be working for the man, you should go, you need to have work-life balance. You need to have, prioritize your mental health. You need to do all of these things, right? And while there's definitely a place for all of those, and there's definitely a place for that mentality and mindset, I feel like a lot of times it's eroded and undermined a lot of people's expectation of what it actually takes to be successful and what it actually takes to be happy, right? Because I'm not saying everybody needs or should be an absolute workaholic or be always just completely focused on, achievements, because what success looks like is absolutely different from everybody. But I definitely feel like there's been a really damaging message sent, and it got exacerbated during COVID, right? Where even during COVID, it was like, everybody should, the world's going to end. Everybody should work from home. Everybody should, not prioritize anything. And we're dealing with this rebound effect in society right now, where a lot of people's ability for any sort of grit has been completely destroyed. And I feel like there's a lot of people as well where it's actually exacerbated a lot of people's issues. You look at, with the increased focus, like I just talked about, on, work-life balance and mental health and prioritizing all these things, many of those statistics were worse off now in all those categories than we've ever been before. And so grit to me is about finding that balance, right? It's about finding never quitting, never stopping, but also developing that ability to just keep going, even when you don't want to. And when I said this epiphany came to me when I was running yesterday, look, I got ready to go run. I put my shoes on, because once you put your shoes on, it's happening, right? And then I sat around the house thinking of all these other reasons why, I don't need to go do this run right now. I'm sure I could skip this one. My body hurts, my knees hurt, I'm tired, I want to spend time with my family, blah, 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 blah. All these things going on in my mind. And I put on my, started my timer, went outside, and I started going. And, within 3 minutes, I was like, all right, I got this, And what that reminded me of was that you often don't feel like it. In fact, you probably never feel like it. You probably are never super excited to get up Monday morning after a long weekend and go back into work. You're probably never super excited to show up every day and prospect sales over the phone, whether that's cold calling people or showing up in person. You probably never feel like handling someone's customer service problem, the problem that they had with their medication or their doctor or their insurance plan. Those are things that you're probably never going to feel like. But it's your ability to do those things day in, day out, time after time, whether it's this career or something else, whether it's this job or something else, that are going to get you ultimately to where you want to be. And I promise you that if you can develop this skill, this mindset, because it is a skill and it is a very specific mindset, that you will be much more happy and you will be successful. Okay? Everybody's seen this. I think I've even showed this before in sales meeting. But this is what people think consistency is like, is showing up and giving 100%, every time. And that's rarely what it looks like. More often than not, it looks like this, right? Just showing up consistently, day in, day out, time after time. And there are a couple of reps that you all know that you are surrounded by that have really mastered this, right? What consistency is, just showing up and giving what they currently can. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're always on top of their game. And, one of the reps that I think of that you all know when I come to mind, who is this? Who am I thinking of, Brian? Consistent. Dave Rosenthal. He's probably, I would say, he's been the most consistent over 5 or 6 years, very, very highly successful. And he is the embodiment for me of grit. Just showing up even when you don't feel like it. He's made that commitment. He has goals. He knows why he's doing it. And he's got that old school work ethic. And I don't think he would tell you he feels like he's a workaholic, and I don't think he is either. But it's that ability to show up every day and give what he has that embodies that grit. So that's my message to all of you. As many of these sales meetings as I've done, and if I could give all of you one thing to focus on, it would be this, because it doesn't take any natural talent. It doesn't take any specific blessing. It doesn't take any physical ability. It's just the ability to show up day in, day out and give what you can, right? That's why I probably talk to some degree about this so frequently. All right, moving on, guys. Trainings and updates. We got a couple important things, but before we get to our current updates, I want to remind everybody of our couple big focuses that we're working on. First being effectuation, right? If you write a policy or you enroll somebody and it doesn't go into effect, it's nothing, right? It's nothing. It's a detriment to all of you. It's a detriment to that consumer. It's something the industry is really focused on right now. Let's write good quality business, all right? We're not enrollers. You all are licensed insurance agents. You all have a fiduciary duty to these insurance carriers, to yourself, to the state regulatory bodies, and ultimately to these clients that you're helping, okay? So you are insurance agents. You have a responsibility to do a good quality job. You're not just an enroller, okay? If you're an enroller, you're gonna be out of this industry very, very soon. AI will replace you, something will replace you. You offer no value, right? Remember, check if their doctors are covered. Do they have a primary care? If they don't, do they know what trade-off they're making? Not just like I sweet talked this person to saying yes on this enrollment and letting me read them the disclaimers. That is not a good quality enrollment, okay? Are their meds covered? What should they expect after they enroll? What will their experience be like, right? If your enrollments are under 20 minutes, it's probably not a good quality enrollment. Maybe, right? Maybe clients that know what's going on, very simple, they understand the industry. You're able to get through stuff pretty quickly that you need to, and they may want you to be doing a quick job, a thorough job though. But you should not be shortcutting your enrollments. If it feels like, they're just kind of, yeah, we've all had those people that we're talking to, and you're like, I don't think you care about what I'm saying, you're just kind of going along with this. Make sure you're doing a good job. Make sure that that enrollment is actually going to turn into a policy, okay? Again, when you're done with the client, do they know what they're getting? Do they know why they're joining it? Could they articulate it to somebody else? The example I keep giving is, could they explain to their family members, their children, their parent, why you have decided to enroll them in that plan? The test I think of mentally is when daughter or son goes over to Mima's house, can Mima tell them why it's good for them to join that insurance plan, right? If Mima can't articulate that, can't explain why Sean enrolled Mima in this, new insurance plan, kids are probably going to be upset. Mima, what the hell are you doing? We've talked about this. So make sure, that's kind of like my mental benchmark is, does Mima know what she's doing? Okay. Send a reminder, a summary text or email. Emphasize the benefits. What are the why this person is enrolling in this plan? Why is it better for them? Follow up until it's effectuated. This is a big issue right now, guys. So for you, any of you W-2s, any of you on our LOA team, our strategic sales team, or any of you independent insurance agents, you need to nurture and babysit this thing until it actually goes into an enrollment, right? Because what we're seeing is something happens, the Medicaid status was wrong, you had some sort of error, the MBI was wrong, something happens, there's some sort of RFI, request for information, and we're not following up on it. Nurture those policies until they go in, and then let's have a 3, 30, 60, 90-day campaign, right? I always look at it, customer service-wise, anytime I've ever been able to help one of my clients, anytime I have a touch point, they're calling me, I'm calling them, I'm helping them, I'm answering a question about where their card is, how to access one of the specific benefits. That's just one more opportunity I have to build that relationship where I know that that enrollment is becoming an actual policy, not just a possibility, right? Okay, again, pipelining lead management. This is another huge focus. I want you all pipelining. Anybody that you're talking to, we need to be saving a future opportunity there, right? People who are turning 65, especially right now, this should always be a huge focus, as these are the golden goose, the golden eggs in our industry, the turning 65s. Get really freaking good at managing a pipeline of people turning 65 and then other people that you're following up on, right? And again, follow-ups are real follow-ups. I need to talk to my spouse. I got to check with my doctor. I'm very interested, but I'm busy right now. Not just like, a dismissal. This person said I can't talk right now. That's not a follow-up, right? Okay. I want to remind you all about the Agent Boost Community Center. This thing Nico built, it's really cool. If you don't know how to access this, make sure you ask your team lead. We're putting a lot of very good information here, a lot of trainings. This is in addition to the Slack community, and it's a better repository of videos, trainings, how-tos, and almost like bulletin board information about things that are going on in the industry. So this is becoming very, very useful. New updates here, Monday morning sales meeting, there's live stuff. I'm putting stuff there, and in Slack, we're putting trainings there. If you missed that NCD training last Monday that happened in lieu of this sales meeting, that's already there with the documents, with the slide decks, all the resources that you need to. So now, if I'm an agent, right, and I want to learn, I have all these resources there, and you can wait until Mike or Agent Booster or somebody spoon feeds you all of this information during business hours, right? Or if I'm an agent that I want to grow my skill set, I want to grow my knowledge, I'm probably gonna, check these things out outside of my normal time. I'm gonna put an extra incremental time to learn these things, to spend some time focusing on developing myself, my skill set as an agent, right? That's exactly why we have this Agent Community Center, especially for all you independent agents. You're kind of like wild cats out there sometimes. I have agents asking me questions all the time. I'm like, dude, we've been hitting that hard for months. Where have you been? So this is a good way for you to pay attention. Okay, huge news, guys. Did everybody see this? They rescinded the DST, the disaster SEP, last week, okay? This is really big for a couple of reasons, right? Number one, it prolongs our ability to do some business during lock-in because DST's disaster, right, has been a very utilized special election period over the past 5 years. It kind of got out of control a little bit and been used almost like a catch-all, a be-all, end-all enrollment period. And so I still don't think it's ever going to be used like that, right? We're going to make sure that the carriers, we're going to make sure you all have lists of actual approved, validated disasters. And there is a little bit of, differences between carrier to carrier of which ones they're going to accept. But this is huge news because we always have some sort of disasters going on everywhere, right? I mean, we can all name a lot of big recent disasters, and this is any county, state, and federally declared disaster. So this will help, keep some windows open for us to do business during lock-in. The other reason why I think this is really important is because the way that it had been pended, and if you look in here, it even talks about it very specifically. CMS had said we were going to need to call in to a 1-800 number and have some sort of CMS rep validate and arbitrate this special election usage. And if you listen to the podcast, I'm going to pat myself on the back, and Dan, I feel very prophetic in saying that I felt very confident that this would not actually go into effect because it was just stupid, right? It was just very ineffectual or ineffective. I didn't know how logistically they were going to do it. And one of the other reasons why I'm excited about this is it's the first time or the first example that I can see in recent history where CMS has said, all right, that was kind of stupid, let's pull that back and let's not do that, okay? So it's a win. It's a win for the industry because it signals that CMS is finally listening. Hopefully there will be a little bit of more a common sense approach to some of the things in the industry that ultimately allow us to be more effective as agents, right? So, no, this is not ever going to be like it was during the heydays of COVID where you could just put DST on anything, right? We're still going to need to do a good job and utilize carrier information of when and where and how this can be utilized. But this, in addition to some of the other special election periods, are going to be a very useful opportunity for us to keep doing business all the way through the rest of the year through lock-in. Okay. Again, a reminder, this is kind of out of place, but turning 65s, I just kept this in here just to remind you guys as we're talking to all these people, specifically and better leads. Make sure that we're having good, thorough conversations with these people. Make sure all of you know a process to keep track of those people turning 65, when they're turning 65, what their Part B status is, if it's going to be activated automatically, if they need to contact Social Security to get that activated, and then you know the process on the back end to follow up before anybody else gets an opportunity using marks or anybody on our team that has marks to be able to check those and be able to enroll those people before anybody else, okay? While we're kind of on the topic of marks has been a real hot button issue over the past couple of years. You know, historically, Anthem had been sponsoring that for a lot of call center reps, and most of our reps had that through Anthem. It's a cost, guys, and as the industry got really tight financially, all these carriers looked to cut costs, right? So then Humana thought, well, we want to cut costs, and a lot of our service teams, all they're really doing is essentially marks checks. So let's just give agents marks, and then we can give a handful of agent marks for less than what it costs us to pay an employee. Well, that got out of control real quick. I knew at any given time, Humana had over 3,000 pending marks requests for agents across the country. And as much as we want to think that we, Agent Boost, are special, or they told us we're special, you know, a lot of entities across the country were giving that to any random agent across the country, and so they've kind of pulled that back. I don't know for sure, but I've heard that marks carries a cost of about $1,100 per user per year. So, you know, if a carrier's sponsoring marks for 10 reps, that's over $10,000 a year. So you can see how quickly that adds up. We still have it through Zing and through Humana, but we're having to be a little bit more selective with who has access to marks. So if you're currently not producing very much, you're probably not going to get access to marks. However, we're going to continue to, for those of us who do have it, continue to have it through the marks channels, right? In Slack, if any of you field agents, Riley, mute yourself. Thank you. We're going to continue to have access to that through the marks channels, okay? So if you don't have access, make sure your Agent Boost rep or your team leads can be there. We're going to make sure someone with marks is there kind of tending to that. Make sure we can utilize that tool. But if you are frustrated with marks, that's a real brief explanation as to what's going on. B, do you have anything you want to add to that? Or is that a good?
Currently, there are 0 accounts being added nationwide from all carriers.
Yeah, so Brian is he's the czar of many things. He's our marks czar for Agent Boost, and as he just said, there's 0 new marks accounts being added at this current time. So, you know, if I was the government and I wanted to make my agents more effective and have access to the right information, and I also wanted to make a little bit more money, I'd probably sell access to marks for my agents. But hey, what do I know? I'm just a stupid insurance guy. All right, wrapping up, guys. Reminder, agent referral bonus, $500. Any of your friends and family want to get into the business, anybody, whether they come on board as one of our employees, one of our captive agents, or an independent agent, once they've produced 15 policies, that's what we consider becoming active, we will pay you a $500 bonus. That could be any policies, ACA, Medicare, life, whatever, okay? Agent Elite training, our next one is happening in May 6th. So take a note to this. This will come up faster than we realize. It's about 6 weeks away. Already that's going to be here. So we'll be flying in agents from across the country as well. But if you have anybody else that wants to get in the industry, this is the next time that's happening, okay? Again, agents who come to this training, new agents, they have an 80% success rate versus about a 10% industry-wide success rate, okay? Reminder, okay? Grand Cayman trip. Next, we're trying to learn from past inefficiencies every year with these incentive trips, okay? This year's qualification period is going to be 4/1 effectives, so April 1st effectives through April 1st effectives of next year, okay? This trip is going to happen sometime in April. I'm trying to work the logistics out with the hotel, but it's going to be Grand Cayman. I've never been there. I don't know if anyone's ever been there, but looks tropical, looks cool, okay? You will need a passport for this. Points threshold. I have 750 here, but it's actually going to be 800 is the qualifying barrier, and then it's going to be the top 10 reps, okay? So there's going to be we're doing a longer period of time. Qualifications are the same. Metrics are the same. 5 points for WellCare, 2.5 for Humana, 2 for Golden Rule, 2 for Allstate, okay? I expect there to be plenty of people who are able to qualify, but it's going to be the top 10, okay? So this will be a real good trip. I want to communicate plenty of time in advance, all right? Shout outs for this past week. Looks like we had Mark, Ashley Moffett, good job, Bosco Kurich, Ethan, Abe, Adriana, Christine Mendoza, and Bree Baque. It's cool to see some new names on here, even a couple people that I'm not recognizing yet. Again, any of you field agents online, this is only virtual sales or people that are using the CRM. So if you're not using that, we don't have line of sight, so we can't shout you out, field agents. That's all I got for you all for this week for updates. Let's finish out OEP. This is the last week officially of OEP, so let's finish it strong. Use that as a closing tactic, right? Hey, if we want to make a change here, we only got one more week for OEP, and then we get a little bit tighter as far as like SEPs and in the lock-in, things like that, okay? So let's hit it hard this week. Any questions? Okay, you guys are awesome. I appreciate you.